Right, welcome colleagues and welcome to everyone in the public gallery. Good to see some familiar faces. I'm Councillor Martin Horwood, I'm the Mayor of Cheltenham, and this meeting is being live streamed to the Council's YouTube channel. Welcome to everyone who's watching remotely. The recording of the meeting will remain online for 4 years. Everyone in the public gallery as well needs to be aware that CCTV and audio recording is now in operation and the footage and recordings will be held by the Council for 5 months. Please also note that a fire alarm is not expected, so if the alarm does sound, you should make your way to the nearest fire exit immediately. And I seem to be missing some pages, but I think the first agenda item is apologies. Sorry, yes. I have apologies from Councillors Andrews, Atherstone, Boys, Lucas, Eldridge, Holliday, Pemberton, Sankey and Wheeler. Are there any other apologies? Councillor Harvey. Smith, okay. Any others? No? Okay, thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest relating to anything on the agenda? Councillor Took.
I'd like to declare an interest for item 10 because I'm the cabinet member responsible for planning at GCC.
At the County Council? Yeah.
Yes, at the County Council. GCC.
Thank you. And is Councillor Took advised to withdraw from that agenda item?
No.
Sorry? No.
He doesn't need to.
No, you don't need to withdraw, I'm advised. But thank you for making that declaration.
Other members of the County Council may want to declare that if there are other members of the County Council present.
Okay. If there are other members of the County Council present, and I include myself in this, then they might want to make reference to their register of members' interests at this moment. No? Okay, thanks. Right, minutes of the last meeting, which is on pages 33 to 34 of your documents. This is the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of June 2026. Does everyone agree that those are a true and correct record? And would you like to do a show of hands? Yes, thank you very much indeed. Okay. Communications by the Mayor. I do have a few communications. The first, I think I ought to say, is that on behalf of the Borough of Cheltenham, to congratulate our new Prime Minister who has taken office today and to genuinely wish him well in all his endeavours on behalf of the country. We might think it's a bit unfortunate that his government is still hell-bent on actually abolishing the Borough of Cheltenham, and that's not a great start, but nevertheless, I think we should embrace the possibility of a new government and fresh thinking at national level, and I think that's a good thing. So I think we wish Andy Burnham well. I have some other mayoral announcements. The first is that my fundraising campaign for my mayor's charities is now well underway. We've had one successful event already. The quiz tickets are now available online on the 18th of September at our sparkling new MX Community and Business Hub near Chester Walk. And we've got the ball on the 26th of September, so tickets are on sale. Just look at martinhorwood.net for either of those. You have to beat the mayor at the quiz, but that won't be very difficult. I'd also like to just talk about some of the things I've been invited to. This time of year, there is a lot of end-of-term celebration, and I've been at National Star, Gloucestershire College, Gloucester University, Cheltenham King's Junior School, and others to celebrate the culmination of the academic year and seen some amazing achievements. But I have to say the single most impressive was a little reception we held in the Mayor's Parlour for Georgie Thomas, who is one of our apprentice rangers and who has just completed her apprenticeship programme with distinction, which is the first time that has happened for a CBC Ranger apprentice. And she also does armoured combat in her spare time, so I would advise you not to get on the wrong side of her. But she is a remarkable young woman, and I think it's brilliant that we have supported the idea of apprenticeships, which we don't have to do as an employer, but that we're also, we've got a really talented team in our Green Spaces team. In other events, I've seen a variety of cultures. We've had Chinese school students in this very chamber asking questions about how the mayoralty works, asking about Cheltenham, asking about food, asking about democracy. And that was an interesting conversation. And I also went to the Cheltenham Hindu Association celebration of the 40th anniversary of that association and of the Hindu Mandir in Swindon Road, which is a remarkable occasion, and all the more remarkable for seeing Councillor Took trying his feet at Gujarati dancing, which was very impressive. But it was a wonderful and inclusive community event, and it's fantastic that we have the temple there and that they do such good work. On the arts front, and with local government reorganisation looming, I've been privileged to see some of the extraordinary quality of arts and entertainment in this town. Obviously, we've just had the Cheltenham Music Festival, but I also went to the Young Performers concert of the Cheltenham Music Festival Society, featuring an extraordinary violinist called Yang Xing Li, who really gave a world-class performance, and on a violin that was older than the pump room, which was quite special. And the quality of some of these events is extraordinary. And we saw a performance at the Princess Hall by Cheltenham Philharmonic, supported by 3 local choirs, giving a fabulous performance of Carmina Burana. And I was also invited to hear some very fine jazz at the Cheltenham Jazz Club. You don't need a big festival always to hear very good quality music in this town, and there's a vibrant live music scene as well. And I also attended on other arts fronts, the AGMs of the Holst Victorian House, and the Wilson Art Gallery and Museum. We've also had a little bit of a sideline in the last month on the space sector. So Cheltenham Town Hall, and this is an impressive coup by the Cheltenham Trust, I have to say, hosted the UK Space Skills Sector Awards. These are national awards celebrating our space industry, and that was very impressive. But I have to say they were slightly upstaged by the students of Cleeve School, which I went to on the 7th of June, and where they were presenting some of their changemaker projects. And I associate school projects with things like papier-mâché dinosaurs and volcanoes. They built a working space probe. And I'm not talking about a pretend one. They actually had to get clearance from the Civil Aviation Authority, and they launched it using a helium balloon. And it took video right to the edge of space. And the only thing that went wrong was that at minus 38 degrees, the GPS tracker froze. And they had to have it retrieved by Ifan Davis, who was a farmer in mid-Wales, who posted it back to them. But quite extraordinary. And I'm going to name Katie Kendry, who is the science teacher at Cleeve School. And Cleeve School, as you know, draws pupils from Cheltenham as well, who is a quite exceptional teacher of the kind that we often hear about. But to see it in reality was fantastic. So we have an array of talent and an amazing opportunity for promoting that talent and that quality in this town. And I just hope that local government reorganisation doesn't threaten any support that this borough council has given to the arts and to culture in the past, because we have been a big player in that as a borough council. Right, that's enough from me. Communications by the leader of the council, Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Mayor. So I would like to take a few moments today to update Council on some of the significant developments and achievements and the challenges that have shaped work over the recent weeks. I want to begin with an issue that sits above party politics and goes to the heart of public life and democracy. Recent national discussions, including the murder of Anne Widdecombe, I'm sure you would all join me in offering this council's condolences to her and her friends and family. And the treatment of people in public life has once again highlighted the unacceptable levels of abuse, intimidation, hostility and racist remarks directed at politicians and public servants and faith groups, such as in Barnham recently. Robust debate is part of democracy. Disagreement is part of democracy. Challenges decisions and holding people to account is part of democracy. But there is a clear line between challenging ideas and attacking individuals. I know the members across this chamber will share my sadness that people who step forward to serve their communities can still be subjected to personal abuse, intimidation, discrimination and racist language. And that is unacceptable. It damages individuals, it discourages people from participating in public life, and it weakens the democratic institutions we all rely on. Whatever our political differences, I hope we can all agree that respect, tolerance and civil discourse must remain at the centre of our public debates. Here in Cheltenham, we should continue to show that politics can be passionate without being personal, and that we stand together in rejecting racism, intimidation and abuse in all its forms. Let's now look to some of the major developments and major issues that are facing local government in Gloucestershire. So, as you all know, the government has confirmed its decision to proceed with a single unitary authority for the county. That decision means the existing county, city, district and borough councils will be replaced by one new council due to come into effect on April the 1st, 2028. Since the announcement, the focus has understandably moved from debating the different options to preparing for the reality of implementation. And whilst I might remain disappointed that the government did not choose the model that we all supported here in Cheltenham, we do now have a responsibility to work constructively and positively to secure the best possible outcome for our residents, businesses and communities. There will be no immediate changes to council services. Residents should continue to access services in the normal way, and our officers will continue to deliver the essential services people rely on every day behind the scenes. There is also behind the scenes a great deal of important work to do. The next crucial stage is the legal creation of the new arrangements through what is known as a structural change order. And this will set out the formal framework for reorganisation, including governance arrangements, elections, the transfer of functions, staffing, assets, liabilities, and then through that transition process. Following that, elections are due to take place on the 6th of May 2027 for the Shadow Authority. And I want to emphasise this point very clearly. The Shadow Authority is not a distant technical stage. It is one of the most important parts of the whole process. The Shadow Authority will be responsible for making key decisions about how the new council is created. It will shape governance, budgets, policies, service design, staffing arrangements and democratic representation before the new authority formally takes over on the 1st of April 28. That is why Cheltenham, I believe, needs to be fully engaged from the outset, and which we have to date, and nothing has changed in that. We must make sure our voice is heard clearly and consistently. We must argue for strong democratic accountability, protection of local identity, proper recognition of Cheltenham's economic and cultural importance, and services that remain connected to the communities that we serve, or that they will serve. That is also important why the Community Governance Review is so important at this point. As decision-making structures change at county level, we need to think carefully about how local communities are represented at the most local level. This review is not simply an administrative exercise, it is about future-proofing local democracy. The Community Governance Review gives us an opportunity to consider how parish and community governance arrangements can strengthen local accountability, preserve local identity, and ensure residents continue to have a meaningful voice about the places where they live. As we move into a county-wide authority, then it becomes even more important that neighbourhoods and communities do not feel remote from decision-making. Local voice, local identity and local accountability must be built into the new arrangements from the beginning, not added as an afterthought. Alongside this major constitutional change, Cheltenham is continuing to move forward with ambition and with confidence. And I'm particularly pleased that we are now seeing activity started at the Golden Valley site. I have to say it's probably one of the hottest days when we were stood in the middle of a field with the sun absolutely pounding down. But I was still able to stand there and go, hey, we're here, which was brilliant. So Golden Valley is one of the most significant projects in Cheltenham's modern history. It creates high-value jobs, attracts investment, support innovation and strengthens Cheltenham's role as a nationally recognised centre for cyber technology, defence and creativity. This project is not just about buildings, it is about opportunity. It is about creating the conditions for businesses to grow, for residents to access new skills and employment, and for Cheltenham to play a leading role in the future economy of Gloucestershire and the wider region. So it was encouraging to notice that when we had the announcement from government, the Golden Valley was recognised in wider discussions around Gloucestershire's economic future. As we move into local government reorganisation, it is vital that major strategic assets such as the Golden Valley are understood, supported and championed within the new arrangements by all. At the same time, work continues on the strategic local plan. This remains one of the most important pieces of work, shaping the future of our area. Recent discussions have focused on housing delivery, employment land, infrastructure, transport, schools, healthcare, and how we plan for sustainable communities. These are not easy conversations. Growth brings challenges, and members will rightly want to scrutinise the detail carefully. But if we want to retain local influence over development, avoid speculative and unplanned growth, and ensure future development is matched by the infrastructure communities need, then we have to engage seriously with the strategic local plan. We also continue to make progress closer to home through our housing services. Since housing services returned to direct council management, officers have been focused on improving tenant engagement, strengthening service delivery, and preparing for the enhanced regulatory rules, and ensuring at the heart of it, our tenants receive the safe, responsive and high-quality service that they deserve. That work matters because housing is not simply a service area. It is about people's homes, their security, their well-being, and their confidence that the council is listening and responding to their needs. Throughout all of this, I want to place on record my thanks to our amazing officers and staff. They are continuing to deliver services to residents, support businesses, progress major projects, and respond to significant organisational uncertainty for all of them. And they are doing so with professionalism, resilience, and commitment, and they deserve our sincere appreciation. So what was my message today out of all that? Cheltenham faces major change, but we're not standing still. We're preparing for the shadow authority and the future of local government in Gloucestershire. We are using the community governance review to strengthen local democracy. We're moving forward with Gold Valley. We're planning responsibly for future growth through the strategic local plan. And we're improving housing services and continuing to support residents, communities and businesses. Above all, we will continue to stand up for Cheltenham, I'm sure, and we will continue to champion our residents. We will continue to defend our borough's identity, ambition and interests. And through the changes ahead, we will make sure Cheltenham's voice remains strong, respectful and influential. Thank you, Mayor. Conscious that was much longer than usual, but it felt like I needed to do that today.
Thank you, Leader. And I think at a time of major change, as you said, I think it's quite appropriate that you took your time to explain our commitment to keeping local voices strong for the Borough of Cheltenham. I'm sure that's shared on all sides of the chamber. Thank you very much. Right, item 6 is to receive petitions. I'm not aware of any petitions unless anyone's going to surprise me with one. No? Okay. Item number 7 is public questions. And the format for this is that the questions that have been submitted are taken as read and have been answered in writing by Cabinet member, but members of the public are happy to or welcome to ask supplementaries. So question number 1 is Mr. Harman to the Cabinet Member for Economic Development, Wellbeing, Culture and the Public Realm, Councillor Tailford. Mr. Harman, do you have a supplementary question? We just need to make sure you're amplified, actually.
Hang on.
Just bear with us, Mr. Harman. Is your microphone up? It had better be.
Thank you.
Mr. Harman.
That's better. Can I thank the Cabinet Member for his reply? Firstly, I can't help but noticing the variance in opinion between the traders in the promenade area, as referred to in my question, and their impression of things, saying that they feel forgotten, and the answer in the first paragraph of the Cabinet Member's response, but I always accept what he says. People must make their own mind up about that, depending on their experiences. My question is, given this is an important issue and is an ongoing one, would he consider setting up some kind of scrutiny panel or liaison group between this council and other stakeholders in the town centre, not all of whom are in the bid? Thank you.
Councillor Tailford.
Thank you, Tim. Nice to see you. I don't think it's in my position to set up a liaison panel. I think one of the things I would say is that we do already have a working group between GCC, CBC and the BID, which is to do with the public realm of our town centre, which, as everyone I think agrees with, is a very important thing for us to have because it's actually making a lot of difference. We're hearing from people. We've just had almost 1,000 responses to the survey asking people about the town centre. And that is an important shift in how we move forward. It's creating a better environment and influences how people feel in our town centre, which hopefully brings some more footfall. In terms of the footfall, I mean, out there, I don't know if you've been walking around today, as busy as anything. And I think we can really point to Cheltenham as a success story. While we're not without fault, we are doing very well, especially when you visit almost anywhere else and you see what it's like on their high streets and you come to ours and go, actually, this is pretty good. You know, I wish Cav House was already sorted, but let's be honest, it's a big project. It's not an easy fix, and we've got the pre-planning application in and we're looking at that at the moment, and that's important to do. In terms of working with businesses, the BID is a great angle for that. And I know you said not every business is in the BID, but we also have the Chamber of Commerce, and also if businesses have issues and they want to talk about it, I'm here. And I'd absolutely happily talk to them, as I already do as a ward member, but as I do as a cabinet member. If businesses have issues, if businesses want to talk about the issues they're facing or their concerns, they can come to me and talk about it. I'm always going to be open to that, and I think that's really important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Telford. And just actually on the mention of the Business Improvement District, without taking time out of the questions, I think it's a good moment to just say congratulations to Francesca Inman, who has been Chief Executive of the Business Improvement District, who is moving on to pastures new in Australia, and who has done a phenomenally positive job as Chief Executive of the BID. I just thought I'd mention that. Question number 2, also Mr. Harman. Do you have another supplementary, Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I do. Very briefly, and I thank the Cabinet Member for his reply, which is helpful. Given the changes that the leader has referred to in the new Unitary Council, don't you think it's a golden opportunity to get together with this new structure to take away the artificial division between county and borough, and really look to share a vision for the town centre, bring in all the stakeholders, both local authority, private sector and statutory undertakers? Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I mean, the challenge is the new authority doesn't exist yet. And in a year, we'll have a new authority, and they are the new administration, and they will be making decisions. Obviously, in the meantime, there is going to be a structure of existing councils working together ahead of that. And as I said before, we already are working with the county council. We're already working with the BID. I do have meetings with the Civic Society, for example, as well. And it's important that we do all of that work already. This survey and this work, we've been quite clear that actually it is that foundation, it's that bedrock for that new authority to use. And I think, while I vehemently disagree with local government reorganisation, I think there is an angle to be made that I do agree with, and that having public realm and highways in the same council should, in theory, be a good thing, because then you have both angles in one place and making sure things work better. And in the past, things haven't worked well enough. And that's what I've been quite proud of this working group we've had with the county, is that things are starting to get better. And this survey and this town centre maintenance approach allows us to do that, and allows us to get on with some things now and also lay the foundations for the future as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Telford. Question number 3 was from Mrs. Regan, but I don't see her in the gallery. So question number 4 was from Emma Nelson to Councillor Peter Jeffries as Cabinet Member for Finance and Assets. Mrs. Nelson, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I do. And thank you to the Cabinet Member for his response, a very comprehensive response. And again, harping back to the recent announcement, given this administration's preference to have 2 unitary authorities, largely one centred in Cheltenham and one in Gloucester, and Cheltenham naturally emerging as one of the urban centres, how will last week's confirmation that we will now have a single unitary, likely to be centred around Shire Hall in Gloucester, impact the Borough Council's vacation of the Muni? Thank you.
Can I just pause you on a point of order? Are you sure that was the right supplementary? Question 4.
To do with
about the sale of the municipal offices.
The vacation of the Muni. It's all connected. Because you can't sell a municipal office if it's still got offices in it.
Okay.
Directly connected to the original question. That's a good question.
Your original questions were about the specific duration and the years since the administration acknowledged the need to vacate the municipal offices. Would you like to reframe that just in terms of the municipal offices, which is what your question was actually about?
I thought the supplementary did refer to vacating the municipal offices because you won't need any presence in Cheltenham with one unitary because it'll all be in Gloucester.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, if there's a problem, let's
allow
move on.
a bit of latitude, but Councillor Jeffries, why don't you answer?
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. I don't think they are explicitly linked. Clearly, there's an ongoing conversation that will happen behind the scenes and now more publicly with the working groups in terms of LGR. That the moving forward, the sale of municipal offices will happen, as I described in the answer to the question. So they're not actually linked, and where the new authority decides to place its offices is down to the new authority. So, that's, I suppose, open for debate and discussion with that new authority. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffries. Mr. Nelson, you also have question number 5. Do you have a supplementary for that too?
I do, and
Which is on the subject of Cavendish Air?
Yes, and I'm on safer ground here. Thank you, Councillor Telford, for this very good response. All I can say is that is great minds think alike to use the windows. Can I just clarify, please, whether the artwork displayed in the windows will be the promenade and Regent Street or just the promenade? Thank you.
Councillor Telford.
Thank you. Yes, as far as I'm aware, it's both the promenade and Regent Street, and the designs I've seen are to cover both and to make sure all the windows are properly adorned with all this new artwork, and it's very nice, to be honest. And it will be just like the artwork they've done on the hoardings already. It will be a nice addition to the promenade and Regent Street to make everything look a lot nicer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Telford. Right, question number 6 is from Mr. Elliot Craddock to the Cabinet Member for Finance and Assets, Councillor Jeffries. Is Mr. Craddock present? Yes, he is.
I've been waiting a few years to say this, but it's Dr. Craddock now.
Dr. Craddock, I do beg your pardon. I think you should have your proper title. Do you have a supplementary, Dr. Craddock?
Yes, I do. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, can I say that I'm actually quite pleased to hear that the Lido lease is for as long as it is, I think 99 years. It's a good long time. But I just want to ask, has the council considered, given this is over such a long time period, actually selling the car park to the Lido Trust itself? Otherwise, I'll probably have to come back in 98 years when I'm 127 years old to ask more follow-ups regarding this.
Blimey, you must be a very good doctor. Councillor Jeffries, would you like to reply?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've not been had that conversation with the Lido. I know my colleagues around the Cabinet have various conversations with the Lido, and I'm sure if that raises its head, or if I'll ask my colleagues to take that away and have that conversation, because it's worth having, because the Lido is one of our prized assets in our town. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Craddock, you have question number 7 as well. Do you have a supplementary for that?
Yes, I do. So to say, again, thank you for the answer, but I was hoping for maybe just a few more details regarding some of the numbers on there. So whilst you've had to make some savings already regarding the £1 million and the other numbers you said in the reply, I just want to know, is there any specifics what perhaps people of Cheltenham may need to go without, given that we had the additional costs of the elections, which we didn't want? So you said we're going to have to make savings. Is there anything in particular you can earmark now that we potentially would have to go without that we otherwise wouldn't have done if the elections had been cancelled as you would have liked?
And I should have said that was a question to the leader, Councillor Hay. Councillor Hay.
Yes.
So thank you, Mr. Craddock, Dr. Craddock, for your, I corrected instant, just before you jumped in there, Dr. Craddock. Thank you for your question. As you'll be aware, the budget setting process starts much earlier in the year, which is what we've done. So we start with the budget setting in February, and then at this point in the year, we are working towards what savings we need to make and where we're going to make them. So your question is a little bit in advance of the decisions that are definitive. But what I can tell you, we're not going to go to we're not making massive cuts to services. That's not our intention. But we also have to think about the bigger picture and moving through into whatever comes next and how we can do things differently. And actually the opportunity, now that we know categorically that we're going to be one, is what more and how can we all work together closer as districts and boroughs and county. So your question is a little bit premature.
I may come back at a later date then, but thank you very much for your answer.
Thank you. Right, we now move on to member questions, and we have two member questions, both from Councillor Davis to the Cabinet Member for Safety and Communities, Councillor Jameson. Ashley, do you have a supplementary to question 1?
No, I haven't got any supplementaries. I just wanted to say thank you for such a comprehensive answer, and question 2 was answered within the answer to question 1. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, we in that case move on to item 9, which is a report on the General Fund and Housing Revenue Account Outturn Report 2025 to 2026, pages 35 to 74 on your papers. This is a report of the Cabinet Member for Finance and Assets, Councillor Jeffreys. Would you like to present the report, Councillor Jeffreys?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Colleagues, it gives me great pleasure to present the General Fund Housing Revenue Account Outturn for 25-26. The report summarises our financial performance at year-end for 25-26 budget. The General Fund Outturn has a £16,000 underspend, with the Housing Revenue Account showing a surplus of £141,000, and this is both against the revised budget approved by Council in February. This information has formed the basis of our statement of accounts for 25-26, which are currently subject to external audit. The draft accounts are published on the Council's website. Now, this is the second consecutive year in which we've had a small underspend that's been reported at the end of the year. And I think in the current climate, with rising service delivery costs and that ongoing cost living crisis and all the other pressures that members are aware of, I think this is indicating the General Fund is somewhat stabilising. Now, I say that, but the picture is not all roses. As you all know, the budget that this Council set in 26-27 contains a challenging savings target of over £1 million. And delivering those savings will be central to sustaining the position that we have reached. This is not a return to growth, but we are heading, I think, towards more stable ground. However, we do operate in the wider economic climate, and that presents real pressures, both regionally, nationally and internationally. And our residents can see those pressures in their own household income budgets as well. Against this backdrop, achieving an underspend and strengthening our reserves is significant. It demonstrates disciplined financial management and positions us to navigate ongoing uncertainty. Colleagues, the General Fund balance stands at £1.459 million, just below the optimum level of £1.5 million assessed by our Section 151 officer. Our medium-term financial strategy plans to add just under £316,000 during this year, and that should bring the balance back to at least over and above the optimum level. Beyond the general balance, we've also added a £1.3 million to our reserves. Now, these are for specific purposes and future commitments. This recognises that the timing of income and expenditure doesn't always align when the payments are due. That's financial discipline matters because it creates a bit of headroom when we have pressures. Within the outturn report, colleagues, there's a £379,000 of general fund carry forward requests, and they've been identified. And these are where commitments were made in 25-26 if they've not yet been invoiced or have moved into 26-27. These are at Appendix 5 in your papers. These carry forwards have been reviewed by Cabinet, the Executive Leadership Team, and approved by the Section 151 officer and delegated powers, and are here for us to note. Now, I want to draw your attention, if I may, to two figures that don't always get a lot of airtime. And that's our council tax collection rate for 25-26, and it stands at 98.01%. This is against a national average of 95.62%. Our business rates collection rate is 97.1%, 97.19%, beg your pardon, against a national average of 96.77%. Both well above national performance. And I think it's a real credit to our revenues team. And I think it's what disciplined financial management actually looks like in practice for the people of Cheltenham. So on the housing revenue account, the capital programme outturn was at £27.9 million against a budget of £33.1 million. That's a variance of £5.2 million. This is not because we've reduced investment into our housing programme, but it's more about the actual delivery of the profile of major housing schemes. I'd say the housing investment programme continues in full, and we are actually building back HRA reserves as planned. We've also received £3.5 million in Section 106 payments at the start of the year. We're obviously applying those as we move forward. These are the funds that are held and deployed against the agreed planning obligations and community needs. Colleagues, in September, Cabinet will receive the next financial monitoring report for 26-27, and that report will detail progress against the savings target I referenced earlier. Also, any emerging financial pressures, and this also includes risks and opportunities this Council's finances face. This is where we track real-time delivery and manage our in-year performance. Mayor, colleagues, I'm presenting this report against a very different backdrop to any outcome report delivered in Cheltenham's history. Because as we know, and as the leaders mentioned, and so has the Mayor, last week the Secretary of State confirmed the government's decision on the future and structure of local government for Cheltenham and Gloucestershire. From April 2028, the residents of Cheltenham will be served by a new single unitary authority, and Cheltenham Borough Council will be no more. So it's now our task to respond to it responsibly on behalf of our residents. And that transition period between now and April 2028 is not a holding pattern, like the leader said in her opening remarks. It's a period in which this council will continue to deliver the priorities within the corporate plan. But we also must manage our town's finances with discipline, and the discipline this outturn report reflects. In the report itself, you see the underspend, the strengthening of our reserves and our collection rates. That's all what I believe is part of the story. It's the beginning of what this council will hand over. My commitment, I think our commitment, should be that through that transition, it leaves the finances of this borough in the best possible place. That is a responsibility of this council, and it's a responsibility we will carry through every monitoring report, the budget setting cycle, and every financial decision we take between now and the 1st of April 2028. Colleagues, I've mentioned that our disciplined financial management, and this is not possible without our dedicated finance team. I'd like to put on record my thanks to them for their continued hard work. Specifically, John Whitlock, our Head of Finance and Deputy 151 Officer, but also Adele Taylor, our Interim Director of Finance and Operations and Section 151 Officer. Now, I'm happy to take any questions. My cabinet colleagues are here, and so are officers. They get really detailed, and I can't remember the answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jeffreys. And colleagues, this is the moment for you to ask any technical questions on any of the reports or the appendices. Just to remind you, you have 9 recommendations to note various outturn reports and details and appendices in your papers, and then a 10th recommendation to approve the carry forward from 25-26 to 26-27 of capital budgets as detailed in Appendix 8. Are there any questions from colleagues? There don't seem to be. Okay. In that case, we move to debate. Would any colleagues like to speak in debate on this report, either in favour of it or against it? Recommendations? Nothing at all? Going once, going twice? No? Okay. Well, I would interpret that as a vote of confidence, Councillor Jeffreys. Would you like to have any closing remarks? Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you. I wouldn't want any member of the public watching to think that we don't actually talk about the council's finances. We do. We've had budget scrutiny, treasury management. I think the committee meetings behind it aren't necessarily here and now. So I know a lot of members around here have asked challenging questions and have had good debate on the council's finances. I just thought I'd better make that point clear for any members watching that whilst members here don't have questions, there have been lots of questions and answer sessions and input. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Indeed, and that's an important point. The Budget Scrutiny Committee in particular goes into a lot of detail on these public finances and has cross-party representation. So, in that case, we will move to a vote on those 10 recommendations, including the approval of the carry forward. Please vote using the electronic voting system now. And I think, it's unanimous, I think. Was there somebody who not voted? The holiday is not present, I don't think. Is that right?
Is that everybody?
Yep, I think that is unanimous. Thank you very much, colleagues. Right, we now move on to item 10, which is titled The Delegation of Planning Enforcement to Gloucestershire County Council, pages 75 to 88 of your papers. Just to be clear, this is not the delegation of all planning enforcement to Gloucestershire County Council. This is on 2 specific items which will be explained, I hope, by the Cabinet Member for Planning and Building Control. Councillor Baker, would you like to introduce this report, please?
Indeed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And as you rightly say, this relates specifically to 2 particular applications. So the recommendation before you today is seeking approval for the delegation of planning enforcement to Gloucestershire County Council in relation to land owned by Cheltenham Borough Council in respect to two specific planning applications, namely the Golden Valley development, which is the northern parcel, an outline permission which was granted 23/01874, and land off Shelley Road in Monkscroft, policy full application 25/00837. And as a precursor to that, I say how exciting it is that we as Cheltenham Borough Council are embarking on these fabulous applications and developments which are going to deliver real growth and benefit to the people in our town. Both of them, and the one in Monkscroft is going to deliver fantastic affordable housing and social rent housing. I go off the off my speech here. So, in a nutshell, a local planning authority cannot enforce against itself. So it needs to seek approval to delegate those powers under the provisions of the Local Government Acts 1972 and 2000 to a third-party authority. In this case, Gloucestershire County Council. It could have been another local authority. This is a practical and legally sound solution which provides transparency and impartiality. In reality, the likelihood of enforcement action is small, given that we own the site, we have submitted the planning applications, and we will be working closely with the developer to deliver in accordance with the approved plans. Cheltenham Borough Council will continually monitor developments, conduct any initial investigations of alleged breaches, and compile evidence. In the unlikely event that enforcement proves necessary, GCC will act. But I really do not. I was just trying to think of a scenario where I could think that this actually might happen. Of course, we never know what's around the corner. But I think given that these are our plans, we're working to approve planning applications, deliver something which we want. I'm hopeful this will go through without any concerns. Just as an example, actually, we had a recent building development going on in down at the Folly, and there were some real issues down there with dust, which Cheltenham Borough Council enforcement dealt with. That would be no different if something similar happened to one of these developments. So I beg to move the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baker. Are there any questions to Councillor Baker? And I'd just like to remind you, you have three recommendations. One, to approve the delegation of planning enforcement powers. Second, to authorise the Director of Planning and Building Control in consultation with the monitoring officer to finalise and enter into a formal delegation agreement with the County Council. And then thirdly, to agree that the arrangement be reviewed annually by the Director of Planning and Building Control in consultation with the monitoring officer and the Cabinet member. Are there any questions from any colleagues? No? Okay. All a bit hot. Deputy Mayor has suggested we might want to think about a hydration break at some point, but I don't know. Not just yet. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Councillor Joy.
Thank you so much. So I was wondering, with the third option, for recommendations, do you feel that there would be any, would there be any costs associated with annually reviewing the arrangements, or would it be relatively well integrated into ongoing costs?
Councillor Baker. What's the question on recommendation number 3 about annual review? Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's going to be any significant cost. It's going to be part of the ordinary officer role, I would have thought. And there will be a time element, of course, but it's an annual review, and I'm pretty comfortable that this is going to go fairly smoothly.
Thank you. Are there any other questions to Councillor Baker? In that case, we move to debate on the recommendations, the 3 recommendations in front of you. Again, any colleagues wish to speak in favour or against or to those recommendations? I don't see anyone. Okay. In that case, Councillor Baker, do you have any final remarks? No? In that case, we move to a vote on those recommendations. Please use the electronic voting system in front of you.
It's quite difficult because people are fanning themselves and thinking they can
Yes. Is that everyone? Yes, that vote is unanimous. Thank you very much, colleagues. That's approved unanimously. Okay, we now move to item number 11, which is the Community Safety Partnership Strategy 2026 to 28, pages 89 to 112 of your papers. This is a report by the Cabinet Member for Safety and Communities. Councillor Jameson, would you like to introduce the report?
There we are. I'd like to start by noting that Cheltenham is a welcoming and clearly ambitious town, as several people have noted. It's a place where people want to live, work, study, visit, and where strong communities play a really big role in supporting residents' well-being. Maintaining and improving community safety is a basic requirement for our success as a town, and it's essential to quality of life for anybody who calls Cheltenham home, which is why I'm pleased to introduce the Cheltenham Community Safety Partnership Strategy for 2026 to 2028. The strategy aims to, it sets out our shared commitment to preventing crime, reducing harm, protecting vulnerable people, and creating safer communities through effective partnerships. And in that sense, it reflects in that respect, it reflects the collective efforts of local authorities, notably our own officers here at Cheltenham Borough Council, Gloucestershire Constabulary, Health Services, Probation, Fire and Rescue Services, the voluntary and community sector, businesses, of course, and many other partners who work together to improve safety across the borough. It also fulfills a statutory duty under the Crime and Disorder Act of 1998. Community safety isn't the responsibility of any single organisation. The challenges we all face today are growing in complexity and they're interconnected, so they require coordinated responses that combine prevention, early intervention, enforcement and support. Accordingly, we've set out the areas where partnership action can have the greatest effect in tackling serious organised crime and exploitation, reducing antisocial behaviour and preventing violence against women and girls. We also recognise the importance of wider initiatives that contribute to community well-being and resilience. These include supporting children and young people through No Child Left Behind, addressing harms outside the home, which includes social media, ensuring a safe nighttime economy and strengthening community engagement. Now, the strategy is ambitious and it's practical. It's underpinned by measurable outcomes, clear accountability, and a commitment to continuous learning and improvement. The Community Safety Partnership will monitor local data. It'll monitor emerging risks and community concerns throughout the life of the strategy. I look forward to all of us in Cheltenham benefiting from it in the coming years. I'd like to thank all of our distinguished officers, both here at Cheltenham Borough Council, our partners, community organisations, businesses, volunteers, and our residents who contribute to making Cheltenham a safer place. By working together, by sharing knowledge and taking collective responsibility for our communities, we shall continue to build a town where everyone feels safe, respected, and able to thrive. Which brings me finally to the second item that I've got here, which is Gloucestershire's proposed anti-hate statement, which flows naturally alongside the strategy, and which I hope the Council will also adopt as a public expression of our commitment to equality, community cohesion, and the prevention of hate crime. And it goes like this. Gloucestershire is committed to being a welcoming, inclusive, and respectful county where everyone feels safe and valued. Hate crimes, discrimination, and actions motivated by hostility have no place in our county. We are committed to challenging all forms of hate and to promoting respect and cohesion within our communities. We recognise the right to peaceful protest. However, we strongly condemn any behaviour or rhetoric that creates division, fear, or intimidation. So I commend these two documents to my fellow members, and for that matter, to everyone in Cheltenham. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Jameson. Are there any questions to Councillor Jameson? And just to remind you that Councillor Chelling, yes.
I think it's just a quick question. Clearly, this is a great strategy, and it's just for 2 years. So there'll be a transition into the new unitary, and I suppose, has any thought been given to that as yet, or is that just still to come? Thank you, to keep on the good work.
Question. I don't know the specific answer, but I would note that it covers the years 2026 right now through to 2028, which begins on January the 1st and finishes on December the 31st, with April the 1st bang in the middle. So our hope is that it gets adopted in its entirety, or at minimum informs subsequent strategies that are adopted by the unitary authority.
Are there any other questions from colleagues on this? In that case, we move to debate on the two recommendations, which, as Councillor Jameson said, are to, first of all, note the Community Safety Partnership Strategy, and then to approve the adoption of the Gloucestershire Anti-Hate Statement set out in Appendix 3. Any colleagues wish to speak in favour, against, or to those? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that I think it's really good that this recognises the right to peaceful protest, and I think the caveat included with, not wanting to create division and fear within our county is really important. I think it's important that people feel they have, the ability to stand on things that they see as valuable, but without creating, division within our communities. So I really welcome this statement.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davis. Councillor Jeffreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What a pickle. Firstly, my colleague, I fully support the strategy document. I think it's a good piece of work, and I think undoubtedly it will provide benefits to our communities. But what a pickle we've got ourselves in as a society where we've got to produce things like anti-hate statements. I think it's terrible. I think this chamber is a good example of where you can have discord and not agree with each other. I think the leading referenced a national politician and the discourse there. I think it's incumbent upon all of our national politicians and politicians across this country to tone down the rhetoric, which then creates the conditions that we are now having to set anti-hate statements. I think it's incumbent upon the media to tone down the rhetoric and stop trying to chase the clicks, which generate more and more of it. There's a pickle we've got ourselves in. I'm not going to solve it right now, but I just thought I'd voice it because clearly I'm going to support this statement. But what a shame, really. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffreys. Councillor Telford.
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, I just wanted to, again, support this. I think it's really important that we do all this partnership working in terms of safety. I think at the end of the day, from a town point of view, we want our town to feel as safe as possible. We want people to want to be here, residents, visitors, businesses. We want them to feel safe here. We want them to feel welcome here. And just from a personal perspective, I want my wife to feel safe here. I want my daughter to grow up in a town she feels safe in. I want my colleagues to feel safe here. And things people do make people feel unsafe, and it's right that we work together to where we can to address that. And particularly with the anti-hate statement, I really welcome us adopting that. But as Councillor Jeffrey said, what a state we're in that we have to, and we've seen it here, and we've seen it much worse across the country. The sort of hate and division and protests that are really not a protest and are an excuse to attack people who just want to feel safe themselves. And I think it's right that we as a county acknowledge those things are happening and stand up against it, because if we don't do it, no one will, and it's right that we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Telford. Councillor Took.
I very much welcome this. I would respectfully disagree with Councillor Telford and repeat. I understand where you're coming from, and I think what you're saying is coming from a very good place. I would be supportive of that. When I was growing up in the 1980s, no one would have ever thought of doing an anti-hate statement, because hatred against LGBT people was entirely acceptable and entirely normal. So I actually take solace in this. I think I'm more glass half full than glass half empty. And I think the fact that we're doing an anti-hate statement is a good thing. And in the past, our country and our organisations would not have done this. So I see this as progress.
Councillor Joy.
Thank you so much. So I also really very much welcome seeing this. I do agree with Councillor Took that just because there are some specific communities that may be singled out within this report, we want to make sure that the focus is on community cohesion, and that there are people who have been targeted who may not be mentioned here, but who I am actually kind of like holding in my own thoughts. I particularly wanted to, raise, just as I've been speaking to Councillor Chellin about inclusion of trans people, trans women, trans men, who I believe to be men and women, to be women of, I believe that trans women are women, that trans men are men, but there are some voices that exclude both of them and that who are believe that it's more ambiguous than that. I really feel conscious of the hatred that they face and like the attacks that they are often subjected to, both in their private lives and in public. And I hope that this approach will actually ensure that they are included and protected as they most deserve to be. I appreciate everything to do with community cohesion and just ensuring that everybody is kept safe, because it is our community responsibility to one another to ensure that. So I appreciate all the work that's been put into it, and I'm very happy to see it.
Thank you, Councillor Joy. Any other colleagues wish to contribute to that debate? In which case, Councillor Telford, would you like to reply to the points made?
Thank you. Is that all right? It was just a tiny
I'm
thing.
going to allow you a little latitude, so go ahead.
It was just, I wanted to highlight Councillor Took's really good point there, that actually things were really bad and things got a lot better. And I think why this is really important now is because we've seen it slip. And that's where my issues come from, is that actually 10 years ago, when we got gay marriage and things, absolutely brilliant. What a change for our society, and everything felt quite positive. And we've seen this rhetoric come into play that is damaging our rights as people. And I think it's right that we stand up and go, that's not acceptable. And we need to get it back to where it was and keep improving. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Telford. I would simply add, I'm very pleased that there's been so much unanimity across the chamber and across all parties on recognising the rightful right to protest and even expressing disagreement and argument. That's part of a healthy democracy. But when it steps over a line into hate crimes, discriminations and actions motivated by hostility, that is where we draw the line, and we should be taking a robust stand. So I'm certainly voting for these recommendations. So I need to put that to the vote. Does the Cabinet Member, Councillor Jameson, wish to make any closing remarks?
Just very briefly, I'd like to thank my fellow councillors for their thoughtful observations. And, as I was making my eminently imperfect speech, and listening to the comments subsequently, it's very nice to hear the seriousness with which this subject is being taken. I was aware when thinking about it originally that it's a strategy. What's a strategy? It's words on a page. But what I was trying to get across was that it symbolises the total alignment of many organisations for the improvement and the health, the safety and welfare of our community. And it's just lovely to hear that everybody feels pretty much the same way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jameson. Right, colleagues, I'd invite you to vote on the two recommendations using the electronic voting system. Has everybody voted? Councillor Priest, have you voted? Hey. Thank you very much, colleagues. That is unanimously passed. Thank you very much. Sorry. Okay. We now move to motions. Notice of motions, pages 113 to 120 of your papers. And I have notice of one motion proposed by Councillor Foster. So you may want to refer, and I think you've all had this shared with you, to the flow chart which explains the process for proposing the motion, questions to the proposer, and then the potential process if there is an amendment and so on. So you might want to keep that flow chart handy. Councillor Foster, would you like to propose the motion? You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Forgive me for not standing. I get a bit dizzy. Hello, everybody. Right. Can I just say thank you to everybody who emailed me about the motion beforehand. It was so encouraging to get that engagement, and I really hope that we can all work together on addressing this new nuisance that we're calling car spreading. The motion targets heavy vehicles, excluding essential vehicles for traders for whom there would be an exemption scheme. It's not an innovative idea, and there is evidence for public support. Several European cities have implemented similar measures, such as Paris, Lyon, and of course Cardiff, while Bath and several London boroughs charge more for high-emitting vehicles. Now, I've gone for weight rather than emissions as the criteria because it would target so many other problems besides air pollution. I suggest following Cardiff's lead of 2.4 tonnes for electric and 2 tonnes for non-electric, which reflects that electric vehicles emit less carbon, but that the weight still causes problems. There are two main strands to the proposal which I'd like to address. Firstly, the harm caused by heavy vehicles, and secondly, the financial implications. So firstly, we all need clean air. According to Friends of the Earth local environmental data, every neighbourhood in Cheltenham has air pollution above the levels recommended by the World Health Authority. So it's probably not surprising that 9% of our population suffer from respiratory diseases. Bigger cars result in more air pollution. It's not just carbon emissions, they also shed more particulates, which are microscopic fragments of all sorts of nasty stuff that comes off the tyres. Visibility is a problem with bigger cars. Obviously, they obstruct the view of cyclists and pedestrians, but visibility for the drivers of larger cars is actually worse than in smaller cars. The cars have higher bonnets, thicker windscreen pillars, and larger wing mirrors, and there is growing evidence that this loss of view from within the car causes accidents. And of course, the collisions involving heavier cars cause more serious injuries, and the worst injuries are usually endured by those in the smaller car, or the pedestrian or the cyclist. The risk is not equal to all road users. The extra weight of large vehicles is also a contributor to potholes, and this is one of the most common complaints among all our constituents. Although the main culprit is the formation of ice from water getting into cracks, heavier vehicles cause more wear and tear on the surface of our roads. Heavier cars, wider cracks, bigger potholes. Local roads just weren't designed for the extra weight. And also, worryingly, an RAC report in 2023 suggested that some multi-storey car parks built from the 60s through to the 80s were also not designed for that extra weight and may need maintenance work doing on them. So hopefully we are keeping an eye on Regent Arcade car park. So much for the harm. I don't think anyone could argue against the idea that those who choose to drive these large cars should pay for the damage. So how does this idea fit with our council's strategies and policies? Cheltenham Council has very worthy corporate priorities, and this motion aligns with most of them. Key priority 2, quality homes, safe and strong communities. Our neighbourhoods weren't designed to accommodate oversized cars, and in many older estates, there just isn't space for them. The outsized cars reduce space for other road users, block visibility, make it hard to cross the road, and slow the passage of emergency vehicles, and this creates ill feeling and resentment in our communities. Key priority 3, reducing carbon. Heavy petrol and diesel models churn out more carbon, while even electric models shed health-damaging particulates from their tyres, all of which contribute to dirty air. And we shouldn't actually forget the global impact for the million or so children working in mines to produce the minerals needed for the batteries for heavy electric cars, and the environmental degradation caused by those mines. I know the council can't solve all the world's problems, but we can do our bit locally. Key priority 4, reducing inequalities. Big heavy cars highlight the inequalities in our society. They make the roads less safe for those who choose to walk or cycle, or who can't afford a big car. Yet those same people are subsidising them for the damage they cause. As to key priority 5, taking care of your money, of course, there are financial implications, and I am not a financial expert. But in the year 25 to 26, the council had a surplus of over £3 million from car parking. The money is not ring-fenced, so it can be used for other projects and for servicing debt. But surely some of it should be put back into improving parking payment systems, whether or not this motion gets carried. The current machines are really frustrating for some people who don't find them very intuitive. Several times I've had to help people who were struggling to pay for their parking. So I think an overhaul of our parking payment system is overdue, and that we should look at installing automatic number plate recognition systems, or ANPRs, in all our car parks. This would then enable us easily to charge more for heavy vehicles, because the system can connect with DVLA and know the weight of a vehicle from its number plate. So there would be no need to weigh cars as they go into car parks, no need for drivers to scrabble about by the door hinges, looking for the place where it tells them the weight of their vehicles. I'm not in a position to get quotes from suppliers, but I am not convinced that the cost of an ANPR system is prohibitive. Sellers of the system, of course, claim that they cut operational overheads by 60 to 70%, and that in the first 6 months, pay and display revenue can increase by 127%. Last year, car parking generated 3.1 million. So if we could trust the sellers of the technology, it would get us an extra £3,937,000, I think, and would soon cover the installation costs. But OK, I'm not that naive. These are big claims from companies with a vested interest. But even a quarter of that would generate nearly £1 million of extra income, without taking into account the extra fees from the heavy vehicles which I'm proposing. And it does seem ironic that we are aiming to be the cyber capital of the Southwest, yet we're not investing in smart technology within the town. Perhaps because parking is such a good earner, maybe we've got a little bit complacent about the improvements that we could make. I've never proposed a motion before, and I accept that this one may have holes in it, and it probably needs quite a bit of tweaking. But please, don't just reject it without serious thought. If you don't like it, say why, suggest amendments, but let's all work together across parties to take the idea forward that we need to tackle this growing nuisance of car spreading. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Foster. Councillor Joy, you're listed as a possible seconder for this motion. Are you seconding the motion?
I would like to second this motion. I wanted to check, since I'm aware that an amendment is going to be proposed. If I were to reserve my right to speak later, when would that occur? During the process of putting this forward?
That would occur later on in the debate, after the debate, if you wish. I mean, you can dive in at any time, I suppose, but the normal thing would be to wait until the end of the debate and then speak.
I think I would like to, because I have prepared a speech, but I would like to try to take on board the discussion and just to try to respond, using that, if you feel that's appropriate.
I mean, I think I'm right in saying there would be a separate debate on the amendment in any case. So you could speak on the amendment and then subsequently on the substantive motion, either as amended or as unamended.
I really appreciate your guidance with this, just because we haven't done one of these in a while, so it's really
Okay,
useful.
so would you like to use your 5 minutes now, or would you like to reserve it till later on?
I'll reserve it.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that sounds perfect. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. Right. First of all, colleagues, are there any questions to Councillor Foster on the motion? Councillor Steinhardt.
Yes, thank you. Could you kindly confirm what the definition of heavy and oversized vehicles are? That's my first question. I do.
Councillor Foster, sorry, Councillor Foster, could you just turn your microphone on?
So sorry. I suggested following Cardiff's lead and saying 2.4 tonnes for electric vehicles and 2 tonnes for non-electric.
Councillor Steinhardt, do you have a further question?
Yes, I do. Could you confirm, because you're talking about the CBC parking areas, what proportion of heavy and oversized vehicles are using that compared to the total percentage? Thank you.
Sorry, I confess I haven't got those figures. I can get them and send them to you. I know that we do have them somewhere, or I can look it up now.
Colleagues, when you finish speaking, switch off your microphone so the next person can be heard as well.
So just yes, please, could you send that? Because I think that's quite crucial to the costings, etc. Thank you.
Great. Councillor Harvey, you had a question.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I noted in the motion that you were proposing exemptions for trade vehicles who are of a certain size and they need to get about and do what they need to do. My concern is, as a father of a disabled daughter who uses a wheelchair accessible vehicle. Now, I'm not an expert in the weights of all wheelchair accessible vehicles, most of which are petrol or diesel. There are very few electric ones. But just a simple search on Wikipedia when using the AI tells me that a Mercedes can weigh up to 3.5 tonnes. And my daughter's vehicle is a little over 2 tonnes. I've not seen any exemption for disabled vehicles. So in my view at the moment, I'm a little unhappy that this is discriminatory against disabled people. So could you clarify that for us, please?
I'm sorry. When I wrote the motion, I thought that I was going to be putting in an inequality statement on a form that would cover that. And of course, that is something I accept that would have to be addressed, the inequalities.
Councillor Hay, I think you had a question.
Can I just clarify something, Councillor Foster, in response to a question from Councillor Steinhardt? Is you said 2 and 2.5 in the weight. Where did that number come from? Just
following Cardiff's lead. And not as harsh as Paris's.
Sorry, can I just clarify? 2.4 or 2.5? Because I think you said 2.4. 2.4. So, and if no one else has a question, can I ask a question? Oh, Councillor Snell.
Thank you. In your outline speech, you touched on some of the human costs of the mining of critical minerals. As it happens, I've written a book on this, so I'm rather interested in this subject. It seems that your proposal would then put more emphasis back on cars powered by hydrocarbon energy. So I'm interested to know whether you've made a balance between the costs of the critical minerals industry versus the hydrocarbon industry. And further, do we now understand that the Green Party is now supporting the hydrocarbon sector?
Councillor Foster.
No.
No, not really.
I'm sorry, I followed the first part. Could you repeat it for me? Sorry.
Yes, you spoke to us. you spoke to us about the human cost of mining critical minerals. And obviously, your policy would, of course, then put further emphasis on lighter, smaller cars, almost all of which are powered by hydrocarbon energy, notably petrol or diesel. In that case, obviously, there are costs associated with those industries and the extraction of those fuels. Then what I'm seeking to understand is whether you've sought to balance the relative costs and rewards of both of these different sectors, and furthermore, whether we should infer from this that there's now a Green Party policy to support hydrocarbon energy over renewable sources.
No, I wasn't making any statement about a balance. I was just making an aside, which I probably shouldn't have because it's not something that Cheltenham Borough Council has authority over. So.
If there are no further questions, I've got one, which is that you referred to following the example of Cardiff, and you also referred to the Clean Cities report, which I did have a look at, and which has a differential rate also for hybrid vehicles. What's your recommendation in relation to hybrids?
I'm sorry, I don't know enough. I'm not scientific enough, really, to comment on that, Martin.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Lawler, is this a question?
Chair, I wish to move an amendment to this motion.
Yeah. We haven't got to that yet. Hold your horse. Do you have a question?
He's
No.
given us
Right.
notice of an amendment.
Okay.
We'll take it as notice.
Okay, thank you. I think we might...
Councillor Bacon, that's a question.
Councillor Baker has a question.
I'm interested in the references to Cardiff. So can I assume that what you're proposing mirrors exactly what is happening in Cardiff? And how long has that been in force for in Cardiff? And do we know what impact it's had?
Microphones, colleagues, one off, one on.
Right. I tried very hard to find data about the impact on Cardiff, and there's certainly no financial data available that I could find yet. I think they did a consultation beforehand, which I haven't actually proposed, but with the benefit of hindsight, we probably should, about it. Cheltenham isn't Cardiff. So I'm trying to get a ball rolling, and I think that's something that's open to debate, what suits Cheltenham. But Cardiff is the first city in the UK to do it. Oxford also proposed it, but they've got amendments. So it seemed good to look at what they're doing.
And Councillor Chandler, do you have a question?
Hi. Just going back to the Cardiff thing, because I'm understanding what you're proposing is car parking charges in car parks.
Yes.
But what, hang on, I'll just finish. What Cardiff were doing was charging people who had permits to park on roads, not to park in car parks. So can you just explain the differential there, please?
As I understand it, car park had a united approach to everything. Maybe I'm wrong in that. I'm quite willing to be corrected. And that they took they had an integrated parking approach. But as we're not the county council, we can only do it for the car parks that we are responsible for, unless we have an amendment to liaise with the county council.
Councillor Chandler, did I see you having a further question? This is not to enter into debate now.
But my understanding was that it was about permit parking, and that's how they were able to measure the weights of cars, because people had to apply for a permit. So I'm happy to be corrected there, but that was my understanding, rather than having to weigh cars and things and run number plates and things like that. Thank you.
Councillor Foster.
Kind of answer. the principle is the same, whether it's permit parking or whether it's in a car park, that the aim is to discourage people from bringing these huge vehicles into town or even from buying them. So I think you can compare the two because we're comparing a principle. And the parking meters, well, it's still the same thing of looking at the weight for the cars and doing it by weight, whether it's on the road or whether it's in a car park. Maybe I'm not understanding your question.
Thank you. I think I see Councillor Tailford with a question and then Councillor Jeffreys.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had one question. Obviously, we are, as Cheltenham, surrounded by very rural areas. Cotswolds, parts of Tewkesbury. I mean, even your own ward of Prestbury is more rural than mine. So do you think if we did this shift and we effectively made it less, discouraged people from bringing larger vehicles into Cheltenham, which, you know, a general shift to have less dangerous vehicles and less pollution is great, but do we think a shift, when people have these vehicles, people in the Cotswolds and things have SUVs, some of them definitely don't need them, but plenty of them are farmers or live in a rural enough area, they need them. Are we discouraging them from coming to Cheltenham and encouraging them to go elsewhere, maybe not shopping on our high street, and instead going to retail parks or going to Swindon or going to Gloucester instead of coming to Cheltenham and spending their money on our high street? Would we discourage them from coming here if that's their only vehicle and we say it's going to cost you more? They're going to go, well, I'm going to go to the place that's free or the place, is that something we would be doing?
Councillor Foster.
I'm a country girl originally, and I mean, I know a lot of people with these big vehicles, and very few of them don't have a smaller car for running about in. I think most farmers, you mentioned, they will have a large vehicle for the farm, but when you're going along twisty lanes, I think there are very few people out in the country for whom the big SUV is their only car. You know, keep the Range Rover on the estate, don't bring it into town, bring your smaller car.
And Councillor Jeffreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you referenced you didn't have any figures in relation to Cardiff scheme, but have you got any figures in relation to any scheme that's been done or any other any financial figures you can give us at all? Because I see the officer has given some numbers, but have you got any numbers at all in relation to costs?
Councillor Foster. That's a very succinct answer. Okay. Are there any further questions? And can I just say, I commend Councillor Foster on proposing your first motion, and it can be a bit intimidating, but it's right that questions are asked and that there is proper scrutiny, and I thank you for answering them properly. Okay, don't worry. Right, we now move to debate, and Councillor Lawler, if you have an amendment to move, this is your moment. Do you have an amendment?
Chair, I wish to move an amendment to this motion.
Right, in that case, you have 3 minutes to propose your amendment. And we may want to, is it possible to share the amendment on the screen, which I hope will be for the benefit of people watching online as well as in the chamber. Okay, can everybody see that? Yep, okay, Councillor Lawler.
I'm concerned about whether this motion is sufficiently defined to develop into a workable policy. The motion appears to blur 3 different concepts: SUVs, heavier vehicles, and oversized vehicles. These are not synonymous. For example, an electric hatchback may be heavier than a small petrol SUV because of its battery. A large van may be oversized, but not necessarily heavier than some electric cars. And many SUVs are neither particularly heavy nor particularly large compared with some estate cars or MPVs. That leads to a fundamental question. What is the motion actually seeking to address? Is it a vehicle weight, vehicle size, vehicle footprint, or SUVs as a vehicle type? The motion also raises questions around exemptions. What constitutes an essential trade vehicle? Who decides? How would a fair and consistent exemption process operate? Without clear definitions, it is difficult to see how any charging scheme could be designed and applied fairly. These seem to be fundamental policy questions that should be resolved before asking officers to develop a scheme. I also have reservations about the timing. Many residents continue to face cost of living pressure, and I'm not convinced this is the right time to consider introducing additional parking costs without a much clearer evidence base and a fully worked up proposal. For those reasons, I am proposing an amendment that asks overview and scrutiny to undertake a neutral, evidence-led review of the issue before any policy conclusions are reached. The committee can then identify the problem we're trying to solve, assess the evidence, and consider the options and report back to the council with recommendations. I hope members will support the amendment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lawler. Do you have a seconder for your motion? Councillor Beale, would you like to speak now for 3 minutes, or would you like to reserve your right to speak until later? Thank you. Just before you speak, I just need to point out there is a rather neat typo in the second bullet point of the motion. We're not considering MOTs on this occasion. We are considering the most appropriate criteria. So there's just a tiny typo there. But Councillor Beale, you have... Oh, right. Well, how good is that? Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Foster, for bringing this forward. Do share your concerns. There is definitely a large import of Chinese vehicles coming into this country now. They are a lot larger than perhaps we're used to on our roads. Definitely something we should look into. But I think there are lots of caveats we need to look through, and I agree with Councillor Lawler's approach on this, and I look forward to the discussion at overview and scrutiny.
Admirably succinct, Councillor Beale. Thank you. Right. So I now have to ask the movers whether you will accept the amendment. So you may want to request a brief adjournment if you need to consider that. Okay. In that case, we shall, let's say, adjourn for 10 minutes. Would that be sufficient?
If they need any advice, I'm happy to.
Is there any right of reply, Martin?
Not at this stage, no. I think you need to decide whether you are going to accept. You can discuss with the mover of the amendment during the adjournment as well, if you wish to have a conversation. But that's not for the chamber, that's for you to do separately. Okay, in that case, colleagues, I'm going to adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes, just for the movers to consider the amendment and whether they want to accept it or not. Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. 10 minutes. Point of order, sorry, Lee.
Yeah, I have a point of order, and I mean, I'm happy to be wrong or have it clarified. But my understanding is that the discussion that goes away, we have put forward a unanimous, in terms of a discussion with the group that we want to put this amendment. I think the mover of the motion needs to go away, not come and have a debate with us about whether or not they accept it. If they decide that they want to, but in the first instance, it's for the mover and the group to say whether or not they accept our amendment in the first instance, rather than talk to us first.
I'm just going to take a little bit of advice on that. Okay, so my order, my advice is that during the adjournment, you should first discuss whether or not you want to accept the amendment, but you can then talk to the mover of the amendment. So this is not to negotiate the content of the amendment, but to discuss any suggested tweaks that the mover of the amendment might then want to make, I suppose, or answer any questions. So if you meet as a group first, And if we need to extend further for then the Liberal Democrat group to meet to discuss any possible tweaks to the amendment, that can also be done. But I would suggest, first of all, see if you can accept the amendment and then potentially talk to the mover during this adjournment. During the adjournment, you first of all decide whether you want to accept or reject, but then if you want to propose any tweaks that might make rejection unnecessary, then you can talk to the mover of the amendment during the adjournment, if possible. And the
I can be on hand. to provide
monitoring officer can
procedural advice.
offer procedural advice during the adjournment as well. So I am going to adjourn for 10 minutes. So if we reconvene at 12 minutes past 4, let's say. Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. Right. Can I ask Councillor Foster, as the mover of the original motion, whether she accepts the amendment or not?
We accept the amendment.
Excellent. Right. In that case, the amendment now becomes a substantive motion. So I think we move to debate on that substantive motion. So would anyone like to speak in favour or against? Councillor Tailford.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I'd say I kind of overall, I would absolutely support a shift away from larger vehicles as a society and as a country, but mostly to me that has to be government-led because they make those big decisions. We don't. If we make small changes here, it won't influence this larger picture as a country. And I think why I support this amendment to the motion, and there's now a new motion, is that I think it's right that ONS look at this. I think it's right that we bring it to scrutiny. I think it's right that we bring in all the available data we can get to make an informed decision as a council. Because at the end of the day, we need to make informed decisions. We can't do it based on what we feel like, but it needs to be what is right. And I think these changes, and I think what I would put to ONS and as questions to think about, is that I'm not sure charging people more for car parking in the town is substantially going to shift our population away from larger vehicles. I think it's likely to shift them away from shopping in Cheltenham, as I mentioned before. And that is obviously a risk to me in my portfolio. I don't want to see people not visiting, not shopping here, whether that's our residents or as visitors to our town. And I think at a time when our high street needs, as we've been discussing, as much support as possible, I'd be against that. So I think that's something to consider. I think something for them to really look into is the costs, to me, because I think there's probably substantial costs, and I'm sure my colleague here has some more information on that, but I imagine there's substantial costs involved in implementing this across our 15 car parks. And I think, again, can that be justified at these times when we're trying to make £1 million worth of savings? That's a question. And my key one is really the risk that we discriminate against a lot of different road users by doing this. As I know Councillor Harvey mentioned earlier, is wheelchair accessible vehicles. Really important we don't discriminate against those people to make sure that they can actually use our town properly and enjoy it the same way we can enjoy it. But then there's also families who have bigger vehicles because of bigger families. You know, I used to have a tiny car. I've had to upgrade it because I've got a big dog and a baby. That is just a decision you have to make as a person living here. But then there's obviously EVs. Some of the biggest cars on our roads now are electric vehicles. And I think we might be discouraging people from having electric vehicles then and actually go back to your petrol car. But obviously earlier, the question I asked was about people having large vehicles who are farmers, who live rurally. And I think at times like these, when costs are going up, people are less and less likely to have things that feel superfluous to them, and they're more and more likely to focus down on what matters most. And if you are a farmer and you had 2 vehicles and you're going, I can't afford this anymore, you're going to keep the one that works on the farm as well as works to take you to town to do your shopping. And I think that's something to consider. And just a personal anecdote, it's not a wheelchair accessible vehicle. My granddad was a farmer. He had a big Range Rover. He always did. And as he got older, that was the only vehicle he could safely get in and out of because of various mobility issues. And say for my nan who went blind, it was a vehicle she understood, and it was the easiest way she could get in and out and understand how to safely do that without having to bend down on the car she would have been stuck in, effectively. And I think it's important that while that's not a wheelchair accessible vehicle, those people are considered, because there's going to be quite a few of those across our rural areas who want to come to Cheltenham, and I would hate to see us discriminate against them. So I hope when Overview and Scrutiny look at this as it goes forward, that they really take those things into account. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Telford. I've seen Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. Councillor Foster, you put out some figures in isolation of the budget, which I'm a bit concerned about. So I'd implore my scrutiny colleagues to look at the figures in the round of the whole council budget rather than just in terms of car parking, please. There is, you also mentioned Regional Arcade and your concern over heavy vehicles, and the council should be concerned because there was an AA report apparently on one car park. That's what I got from your impression of what you're saying. I just want to give members the reassurance, and obviously anybody watching and the press, that all of our car parks and assets are surveyed regularly, so they are looked after in that respect. I will, of course, raise the question with the relevant property team for clarity for myself, but I don't wish anybody to be alarmed too much. It's on Regional Arcade, which I find kind of interesting, because I was a member back in 2000, and I can't remember, it was black and white back then, but there was actually an ANPR system installed in Regional Arcade car park. I think the cost of that system alone was somewhere north of £100,000. So I know that the officers put down replace a machine is X times by X gives you a figure, but actually, even if you said, I don't know, half that cost per car park, well, we've got 13 car parks, or 15 car parks, sorry. So you could be looking at £750,000. So I think, I don't know, somewhere between £200,000, which is what the officers said there in that initial question they've answered, to somewhere actually what you actually might get is going to be an interesting one for, I think, our ONS colleagues to consider in a round of the overall council budget. So I'm very supportive of the amendment. I wouldn't have been supportive of your motion had we not had this amendment, because I think it would have been a bit irresponsible of us to proceed without that financial knowledge. But thank you, Councillor Foster. Thank you for the amendments as well.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffries. Councillor Took, I think I saw.
Thank you. I'm a Green Liberal Democrat. I'm a member of 11 different environmental organisations, so I really care about things like emissions. I am not a populist of any sort, an eco-populist, a right-wing populist, and I'm not a populist, as Zach Polanski professes to be, because I think populists normally push for easy solutions which lack nuance, and blame one group of people. I think this is exactly what this motion did. And I'm delighted that it has stopped being a populist Green motion and has become a Lib Dem motion. I don't blame one group of people, because the reasons why people have big cars are complicated. It's not just because they're wealthy. It's because they have families. And families are expensive and they need big cars. I don't want to make life more difficult for them necessarily. It might be because they have dogs. Again, it matters. It's people's quality of life. It might be because they're disabled. So I think this was an oversimplistic solution. I think it doesn't deal with many of the issues around emissions. So for instance, I had a Mini Cooper until 7 years ago. I moved to a small SUV, which is a Peugeot 3008. It uses a lot less fuel because I moved from an old car to a new car. New cars are much greener, even if they're bigger. It's more complicated than that. It's more complicated than that because electric cars are often heavier cars. We know that. So this vague thing about heavier and bigger, well, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. It's more complicated, and the amendment reflects that. Should also note that electric cars, who I think we're all pro, even though they're heavier and we don't like heavy cars, are also driven more than petrol or diesel cars. There's lots of evidence of that. They use more car parking, they drive further because it's cheap to drive and because people's consciences are appeased. They feel they're being green when they do it. So I support the amendment. I think the amendment has turned it into a thoughtful Liberal Democrat motion about an issue that we all care about, regardless of whether we wrap ourselves in a green banner. Thank you. I support the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Collins, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start off by saying, of course, I agree in principle that this is a good thing, but how it's actually worded and delivered is something else. And you did say right at the beginning of your statement if anyone's got any helpful suggestions, then please give them. So I've got a few, all right? It might take me a minute or two, so do bear with me. I think it lacks detail and it needs to be strengthened. I think things like the luxury car tax wasn't mentioned in any SUV, especially an EV or a hybrid SUV, is going to be over that £40,000 threshold, to which the government are already charging the owners of those vehicles £400 a year in excise duty for either 3 to 5 years, depending on what sort of vehicle you've actually got. I think that would strengthen it, because people might think you're having a go with EV and hybrid car users here, because they've already bought a car, which is very expensive, which they in their minds think is more friendly to the environment, and then they're going to be hit with even more charges. I think that needs to be worded very, very carefully. As I was going through the motion and on all the references, I must admit I was struck by one in particular, your reference 11, which actually worryingly took me to something called ICE. And it's not that ICE, Jan, don't worry. It's the Institute of Civil Engineers. And there was a paper in there that was written about potholes, the cause of potholes, and how to reduce the chance of actually causing potholes. I think that was very, very weak as well, because we're talking about, let me give you a very, very quick lesson in engineering or physics. A smaller vehicle that weighs 500 kilos might exert more of a load on the surface it's sitting on, because its wheels and tyres are small, because the footprint it exerts is smaller. If you've got a larger car, like an SUV, it might be twice the weight, but the footprint it exerts onto the surface it's using is actually much bigger. Therefore, the load per square inch, per square foot, square metre is actually less. It worries me that the RAC is saying that because of the weight of these heavier vehicles, the structures that they are using are now not strong enough to actually withstand them. Well, structural engineering, and I know we've got structural engineers in the room with us, any structure that is designed and built is designed and built to be used, not to sit there empty. So it actually helps if it's got load in it, because that makes the actual structure a lot stronger. It introduces things called bending relief and things like that, which actually make the structure safer, unless, of course, it's got concrete cancer. Maybe that's the problem with these car parks. A couple of other points I've got here as well. We should be focusing on things like 20's plenty, reducing the speed limit. If we're talking about injuries to other car users, other road users, pedestrians, children, etc., surely the speed of the vehicle is a factor there, not just the height and weight of the vehicle.
Mr. Collins, I'm going to have to ask you to draw your remarks to a close with your 3 minutes.
Oh, can I just say one more thing?
Briefly.
The weight. What weight are we talking about here? Because in the aircraft industry, we've got maximum weight, empty, we've got maximum takeoff weight, maximum landing weight, operated weight. What weight are we going to talk? We need to have a defined weight. And the last thing I'll say is copies of my book are available for sale at the back of the chamber after the meeting.
That's enough. Thank you, Councillor Collins. Councillor Lewis.
Bit of identity theft there. I mean, firstly, I thank the opposition for taking the amendment. I think it's clear that the original motion either was lacking somewhat in the detail and the level of granularity we'd need to take policy forward seriously as a council. I mean, my only thought seeing this motion and seeing this incredible opportunity to take what is potentially a very interesting idea to a more sort of robust and researched platform is the very real question that many of us who have held the climate portfolio here at Cheltenham Borough Council will be very, very aware of. There will never, under any circumstances, be enough money in this council's budget to tackle the climate crisis that we here in Cheltenham face. You could spend Cheltenham's entire budget twice over and still not make the levels of progress that many of us might hope in the face of the climate crisis. I've heard a lot of numbers thrown around today, anywhere between sort of 200,000, which was the officer's report, to something almost sort of not too far short of £750,000 to deliver this kind of policy. And I think I openly implore the scrutiny committee, which I hope, as colleagues back this motion, will be set up to do this work, to consider the very real question of whether, with just 2 years left as a council and a serious legacy left to set in the face of a climate crisis, whether this is actually the best possible use of potentially £750,000. I mean, just to give you a sense, even at the low end, this represents almost a decade of Cheltenham Zero business funding grants that we offered back when I was the cabinet member, these small grants that we were giving to sort of small businesses and sort of community organisations to say, try something interesting in the climate crisis and tell us what you learned so we can do more effective work across Cheltenham. This at the lowest end would represent almost a decade of that funding. So I do implore the committee that is set up to consider this, to ask the question of, with the time we have left and the question of how much carbon reduction can we seriously deliver per pound, whether this is the right policy to take forward.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Councillors Beale and Joy both reserved your right to speak until later in the debate. Yes, he did. I think he did. Oh, no, did you speak? No, you did speak. I beg your pardon, Councillor Beale. It was an important contribution and I absolutely noticed it. Councillor... I do apologise. Councillor Joy, you did reserve your right to speak until later. Now is your moment if you wish to speak.
I did want to start by saying, genuinely, we really appreciate everyone working with us on this. I know that Councillor Foster sent this to everybody ahead of this meeting. We wanted to make absolutely sure that people had the opportunity to have a look at it before it was published. We wanted to try to be as well prepared as we could, because we know this issue is actually really contentious. Most people would generally believe it's not the business of local government to pass any kind of judgment or restrict their choice on what vehicle they decide to buy and use. And we know that car ownership and the cost of living is expensive as it is. We're all facing the pressures of an ongoing cost of living. And we didn't want to lightly raise an issue of yet another cost burden for residents of our town. So we appreciate having an adult discussion about this and just having a bit of, a bit more context for what people are thinking about. It's just that we are very conscious ultimately that in this specific instance, it is local government and our community that we represent who do bear the burden of accommodating vehicles that may not necessarily be suitable for use on small and often very narrow, very busy urban roads. You're right that it does mean it's a very nuanced issue. And in some ways, this is exactly the reason why we wanted to bring it up. There are multiple issues under discussion here. The fact that Councillor Lawler actually mentioned in the amendment that we need to, as a first point of order, we need to identify specific issues that we're seeking to address with this. This actually just hit on several metrics, and I appreciate the fact that we've had the chance to discuss it. The implications of our choice in vehicles can often be invisible to consumers. We just want to make sure that people are aware of the implications of the choices that we do make. People deserve to be empowered with information, and I appreciate the chance that we can have to try to enlighten them of that, just because it protects other people who may be set at a disadvantage. All road use is ultimately discriminatory. Anybody who uses a vehicle may be inconveniencing a pedestrian. That's just the reality of it. So just to be able to have a mature reflection on what we're doing is very valuable, I think. I feel conscious that new people are buying new cars every day. So just being able to inform them of their choices as soon as we can, based on entirely up-to-date information, I think that that's important that we're doing this now. I know that costs of living are probably never going to become easier. It's probably never going to be simple to afford everything that we need. I suppose in some ways this is contextualised for me. Councillor Beale's reference to Chinese vehicles on English roads and British roads at least makes me appreciative we don't have Cybertrucks here. And actually, to refer to Councillor Harvey's comment about disabled vehicles, we did mention in the original motion about, I think the officers contributed about blue badge holders being exempt. So, just being able to look at this in overview and scrutiny, I think would be very valuable. We can just bring everything on board. So I think that's everything I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Councillor Joy. And I'm going to exercise my privilege of making a comment as well. I think it's very important that we've debated this issue. And I think these issues of particulate pollution, of air quality, of carbon emissions, of road safety, and especially safety of children on our streets are really important, and we ought to be addressing them. And indeed, as some colleagues say, no, I've already raised this at county council level in terms of on-street parking and parking permits. But Actually, which metric we choose to try and influence is quite a live debate. It may be that we think, as some colleagues have said, that actually carbon emissions are the absolute top priority and we ought to try and incentivise those first above vehicle weight. But is there some kind of combination? And I take Councillor Foster's point and the Clean Cities report's point that actually weight is a good proxy for other environmental harms. But on the other hand, most of those harms take place on the streets, not in car parks. In fact, with the advent of AI and this all being publicly available data on the dimensions of vehicles and the emission levels, it doesn't seem to me impossible to produce a smart system that doesn't just use a blunt instrument, because weight can be complicated for the reasons other people have said. So I think it's right that we go away and do our homework on this and try to take it forward, perhaps with the County Council's progress on these kind of things in mind as well. And I think the motion as amended now allows us exactly the process to do that, to take it to ONS. And I really look forward to ONS getting to grips with this in a big way, because it is a crucially important issue. It is important that we tackle particulate pollution. It's important that we make our roads safer and cleaner. And so I'm going to be supporting the motion as amended. But Councillor Foster, you have the right of reply to the debate. As the mover of the original motion, would you like to finish off the debate?
I'd like to thank everybody who has participated. I'm sorry that I could come up with so few answers just out of the air. There were a lot of references in this. The only thing I would like to say is that I'm an English teacher. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a financial whiz. So all I can do is research. Now, I'm sorry I didn't choose to research from your book instead of what the RAC said, but I have to go somewhere and think, well, I will look at that research. So I think maybe there was a little bit of unfairness there, but very tongue-in-cheek. So the other thing, it's been referenced in the debate as this was a Green motion. Oh, now it's a Liberal Democrat motion. And I really was not trying to be divisive with this. I was trying to draw us all together in a common cause. And I hope that, I don't think ONS are political, are they? So hopefully it can be taken forward in a non-political way. I'm very grateful for the amendment. And I'll vote for the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Foster, and thank you all colleagues for the spirit in which this debate has taken place. Actually, I think there's been robust discussion that ultimately a degree of consensus. So we often talk about politics of division and confrontation and things like that, but I think this chamber has represented itself well today. Okay, I now need to, I think, put this motion as amended to the vote. Can you please vote using the electronic system in front of you? And I think in the absence of Councillor Barnes, yes, that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, colleagues. Item number 13 is any other item the Mayor determines is urgent and which requires a decision. I have no such item. So that concludes today's council meeting. Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who's been watching patiently online.